let's go to the Packers. 4-7. They've lost 6 of 7. I do, and we'll get to LaFleur and what to expect from this team moving forward. But why don't we start with Rodgers? He did take some accountability. He missed on some of those third down throws. Like, we do not see that very often.
Yeah. He was not his sharp self in that game by no means at all. And I think that certainly was the problem. And look, I think when you break down this team, their whole team isn't sharp. I mean, the execution, has not been great all year. But, Rodgers is going to take a lot of the heat for this. But let's be clear here. Their defense has been really poor over the last month. I mean, this is supposed to be some great defense. And, they gave up 421 yards last week to Dallas. They drop in another 408 yards, last night to Tennessee. And both teams, Tennessee throws for 320 in the game, Patrick. I mean, think about that. Tennessee throwing for 320. That how is that even possible, right? How is that possible? They gave up more yards to Tennessee in the passing game than they have given up to any team they've played so far this year.
Wow. And again, going into the game, had given up 140 yards per on the ground. Actually, were pretty good against Henry. You could tell they were stacking at times, but still, it's almost like while Henry only had 87 on 28 carries, so 3-1 average, he did dictate the momentum of the game because he put him in those third and shorts, and then Tannehill was effective on those third and shorts.
It's like the Eagle game. The Eagles' run defense was bad. Yeah, they weren't great, but the Eagles' run defense was allowing 3 yards, 4 yards. They weren't really getting gashed, right?
Right.
They were body punches that set up other things. It kept them in a lot of third downs that were manageable, at third downs to convert, and it also kept the running game part of the game plan. And then as the score increased, it forced LaFleur to not be able to run the ball anymore. He had to try to throw it, and that exposed an offensive line that hasn't protected receivers that kind of are not in sync with the quarterback, and a lack of it. I mean, it's just been consistent all the way through. I mean, they had 56 yards. Look, they lose to the Commanders, they had 38 yards rushing. They lose to the Jets, they had 60 yards rushing. They lose to the Giants, they had 94 yards rushing. They lose last night, 56. So the word around the street on Green Bay, you stop their run game, you're going to win the game. Got to stop them from running the football. And Tennessee clearly did that last night. But on the other hand, Green Bay stopped Tennessee from running, but they couldn't stop them from throwing.
This is not tangible, so take it for what you will. But we were just talking about kind of the demeanor and the personality of Vrabel. The very opposite seems to be LaFleur. He looked shook last night. I don't know if that's the case. Again, I'm just reading body language, and that's something that's nuanced, but just kind of looked overwhelmed.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's way bigger for him. LaFleur's just as I wrote about on the Daily Coach, we talking about it. He's a schemer. He's a play caller, right? And so the special teams haven't gotten any better. It's not Rich Bisaccia's fault. He's a good coach. He's had good special teams before, but when you don't emphasize it. And then here's the other issue. They don't fix the defense. He is subjected to what Joe Barry believes they should do defensively. They're not good enough. Now they got to go on the road to Philadelphia. Now they got to go on the road to Chicago, before they get to the bye in their last 4 games of the year. And they end up in Minnesota. They end up at home they got 3 of the 4 at home. But it's not Mike Palm yesterday talked about betting Dallas to not make the playoffs. I think that loss at Tennessee really helps Dallas make the playoffs.
Well, you mentioned it. The Packers are 4-7. We're going to hear from Rodgers right now. They're on the road Sunday night at Philly next Sunday. Feels like everything's on the line. Let's hear from Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, season's not over. There's still 6 opportunities left. We got a tough game. Got to go to Philly. Hopefully we can, these few days, get a little healthy, refresh the mind, and then obviously we got to win these next games.
Okay. Everything sounds good there in Green Bay. Everything's going swimmingly.
Well, I mean, it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good when we know they struggle to stop a 6-back offense, right? We know that. I mean, even the last time when they dominated the Bears still ran for 180 against them in the 6-back offense. They only threw for 48, but they really weren't. They weren't throwing the 6-back offense back then, so that's a problem. We know when they played the Giants and they lost, which is a six-back offense, they couldn't stop the Giants from running at 125. The Giants threw the ball effectively. When they played Buffalo, that game really wasn't as close as the score indicated. Buffalo's 2 turnovers in the fourth quarter kept the game and allowed the Packers to cover. But, they really never got control of that game with their defense. They gave up 153 yards rushing and 216 passing. So it's going to be it's going to be hard. They got to get better on defense, and they're just not good enough. And they're not. I would say this: they struggle when it's no longer on Rodgers' plate to carry the team.
Go ahead and throw up the Packers schedule there, Bond. What a mercurial team. Think about it. They lose week 1 at the Vikings, and then they win, 3 straight. They then have lost 6 of 7. Now, that Cowboys game, remember, that was a desperate comeback. So this could be a team staring straight at 7 straight losses. I mean, this is a team in a bad way right now.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, look, how do you get out of it, right? How do you fix the problems? They haven't fixed the problems. I mean, my point, let's go back. They haven't fixed the problems on special teams. You can hire a new coach and still have special teams issues. Like, you're still you're still not there. So, like, at what point do you say, wait a minute, how do we get this handled? The mark of a good coach is his team continually gets better during the season. Are we feeling that way about the Green Bay Packers? I would say no.
I've got a number at a couple of shops on that 27th Sunday night, Philly hosting Green Bay after Thanksgiving there. You want to take a stab at what the number is? Of course, Philly is your favorite. What do you think?
6.5.
You nailed it. 6.5, 100%. 6.5.
They're not going to give you the touch. They're not giving you Rodgers and a touchdown on the road, backdoor cover, and they can't make it so that I mean, look, they got beat by 10 in Buffalo. And that was an interesting cover, to say the least, more because of Josh Allen than it was because of the Packers. So, that would be where I would think.
I was thinking about Vrabel, and again, Cincinnati, Tennessee. The next time out, Tennessee's a 2.5 point dog hosting Cincinnati, so that's fun. But Schottenheimer always got clubbed for not having postseason success. With Vrabel, I think you said in the article he's 2-3, but those 2 wins were unbelievable. One in Baltimore is like double-digit dogs, and then one up in New England in Brady's last game, wasn't it?
Right, yeah. So he starts out with Brady's last game. They win that. It's a 14-7 game, but Logan Ryan intercepts Brady on the last throw in Foxborough for the touchdown. So they win that 21-7. But then they go in to beat Baltimore, and Baltimore couldn't stop them from running, and then they ran into a buzzsaw against Kansas City. But now they've played 2 home games because they've had home field and they haven't been able to win those. And look, they were the better team against the Bengals last year. They just didn't play better. Tannehill throws an interception on the first pass of the game. They turn it over. They played good enough on defense. They forced a lot of field goals, but they weren't able to close it out. I mean, 64 win percentage. Schottenheimer's at 61% winning. Schottenheimer's at 61% winning percentage with 200 wins. Dick Vermeil just got in the Hall of Fame with 52% winning percentage. I think 113 wins, although he had the 1 Super Bowl.
Tannehill looked confident on some of those throws as well. And Downing, who had an issue when he got off the plane, he called a good game as well. That was a nice offensive
really did.
flow.
He was celebrating, and unfortunately, he should have taken an Uber home instead of doing what he did, because they've got the long week, and he probably had one too many beers or, celebrating on the plane ride home. So that's a problem. But I think the other thing that you can't overlook in terms of the ability of what Tennessee does is that they're just so relentless. They don't give up on who they are.
Visit VSiN.com to get current odds, listen for free, find showtimes, and download VSiN sports betting podcasts.